Welcome back to a Designated Drinker Show's limited series, the Do-Gooder Social Hour. Now, we've taken a slight break from our regular scheduled programming to give center stage to a few folks who are bringing goodness to the world. And to accompany you on this episode into doing good, we recommend crafting yourself a watermelon mojito. Yep, this one's 0 proof. Of course, if 1.5 ounces of premium white rum fell into my glass, I wouldn't be mad at it. So to find this recipe, just scroll down into the episode notes or head over to designateddrinker.show. So like I said, welcome back, because this is part 2 of our conversation with the chair of Alexandria's LGBTQ Task Force, Diana Maurer. So just in case the listeners missed it in part 1, will you please tell them again what Alexandria LGBTQ Task Force is all about?
Sure. So the task force is essentially a bridge between the LGBTQ community and their allies in the city of Alexandria and the city government in Alexandria. The task force works with the city government to provide training for frontline city workers, so firefighters, police officers, and so forth, so that they're better able to serve the broader community of people who live, work, go to school, visit Alexandria. It really helps make a great city even more wonderful.
We've already discussed again, part 1, that we both live in the Alexandria area. And when Nick, our producer, is the one who reached out to you and told me who he was pursuing, I was like, I didn't know that existed. And if you haven't been to Alexandria, it's not a massive city. It's a relatively small city. Of course, it sits right outside or alongside DC. Mm-hmm. Is that common in city municipals to have a task force like this?
That's a great question. I don't have a sense for how common it is in other cities. I think we're rather unique in Northern Virginia. And part of that may be because we're a city.
Yeah.
Because most of Virginia is organized by county, and they tend to be sprawling. But the city of Alexandria is a little more compact. But it's still large, 220,000 people. It was created in 2007. And initially, it was part of the city's efforts to provide outreach to victims of sexual violence and domestic abuse, and targeting or focusing on supporting marginalized communities. So it started out of that. And over the years, it has evolved into becoming a task force that exists predominantly. Staffed isn't even the right term. It's a bunch of volunteers, people who live or work in the community, come together. We meet quarterly.
Wow.
And we talk about ideas for what we can do to work with the city to help make Alexandria an even better place.
How did you find it?
I met Erica, who's the lead within city government, who works in the Department of Community and Human Services, at an event in Fairfax County, where there was a sort of a queer transgender event where different tables. And we just got to talking. She was 1 or 2 tables over. And I said, at that time I was there representing Equality Virginia, which is a statewide organization. Mm-hmm. I'm on the board of that group as well. And she mentioned that, City of Alexandria has this task force. And I said, I had no idea. And I think part of that is because, like a lot of folks who live in Northern Virginia, I work in the federal government. So I know all kinds of amazing, wonderful, very nerdy things about the federal government. But when it comes to local government, for many years, I didn't have a clue.
Sure.
So getting involved in city or local government was something that seemed semi-mysterious to me. So she was wonderful. She got me involved in the task force. I started attending meetings. We are always open to have people attend. Folks can go to the website to find out when our meetings are. We're always looking for people to bring ideas and energy to help work with us, work with the city.
That's great. That's great. You don't have to worry about getting that website. You can just scroll down into our episode notes and we'll make sure there's links for it right there. So people won't have to look far. It'll be as far as scrolling in your phone while you're listening to this episode. With all of your experience and all the wonderful things you do to help break down barriers, do you have any tips on how somebody could do that personally, like in their own lives? Or how somebody might be able to get involved to help change those perspectives?
Sure. So it's I think it's first important to understand yourself, because it's so important to speak from your own genuine experience. So know yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, understand and fully embrace the fact that you can't speak on behalf of the experiences of everyone else within that community.
Sure.
Right? You can be a representative example of that, but you can't speak to all the various experiences of whatever community that you're talking about. Now, the third thing is to just try to understand, I don't want to say the other side because that sounds oppositional, but try to put yourself in the shoes of someone who's either not sure of the issue or who may be openly or partially opposed to the issue. Not that you necessarily have to agree, but at least understand that perspective. Why would someone feel threatened by marriage equality? Why would someone feel like that their rights are somehow diminished when someone who's trans is given access to a bathroom?
Yeah.
And you can work from that to have a dialogue and hopefully reach that point of respect and understanding, even if you don't reach the point of agreement.
That's such valuable advice on just life in general.
And I'll be the first to admit, like in the moment, that can be hard to do. And
Sure.
you also need to recognize the fact that there are some people that not only will you never get to a point of agreement, you may never get to a point of understanding or respect. I hope that percentage of people is certainly not the majority, but there are people like that, and you'll know right away when you run into someone like that, and then it's probably best to disengage. But most people, in my experience, I found, who are even skeptical or somewhat oppositional are willing to at least hear you out a little bit.
Yeah, that's great advice, really, honestly, just on life in general. But for you to be able to do that to help your fellow society, the society as a whole, to help others to understand, you really do put yourself out there, though.
Yeah, and you do have to, that is one of the things about doing some work, and it's part-time volunteer work for me. Put yourself out there in that advocacy role, because you are out there. I'm in awe of people who do this kind of thing on a full-time basis, because they are exposed to a lot of white hot anger, misinformation, and just nastiness. I mean, the ugliest side of social media comes out when you're working in this advocacy space, particularly when you're working on behalf of the LGBTQ plus community.
Absolutely. It's an unfortunate thing. It's funny, is a couple of my friends who know where when we start talking about the trans space, you're right. I mean, I've had it from friends who are in the LGBTQ space,
right,
who are anti-trans is the wrong word, but just misinformed and judgmental and closed-minded. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. But I've seen it, the same amount of disdain or that angst against it, just on the cis side of things.
Right.
And
exactly.
For me, it was baffling when I have two friends, two women that are married and they're in our age bracket, and how one just felt so against, and why do they have to be in our community? And I was just head scratching for me.
Right. Exactly.
Head scratching for me.
And I think that's one of the benefits of having the task force like we have in the city of Alexandria, is that it allows people from a wide slice of the community to come together and work together towards some common ends. And even if there are differing perspectives, it's much more difficult to hate or misunderstand people when you don't know someone individually. So when you're working side by side on, hey, let's work towards pride. Let's have the best pride ever for the city of Alexandria, or let's work with city council to get rainbow-themed sidewalks installed in key parts of the city of Alexandria, right? Which is coming.
That's
so
great.
Thank you, city council, for that. When you're working side by side like that, you're like, oh, you tend to drop from your perspective that, oh, this is someone in a particular group, as it's someone. It's it's Diana.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I
Well,
know her.
The funny thing is the same person who was like, why am I my community? Why do they have to be added to my community? The very first time they met was by accident. They were at the bar that my friend and I walked in together to have drinks. So we sit down, hugs, kisses. I mean, these are very close friends of mine, and on both sides. They just didn't know each other. And by the end, within an hour or less, there was no greater conversation around anything other than they just got to know each other as humans, and that was it. It literally melted away. I could almost watch it melt away.
Exactly. And that's what it's about. There are shared human experiences that everyone sees through their own lens of your race, your gender, your age, your nationality, all of that.
Yep. So
everyone comes at it from a different perspective, but there are some common things, like going to the grocery store, working a job.
Yeah.
Many women, it's like your hair. Like some days it's amazing, and some days it's like a complete and utter mess. And it's just sort of a mystery.
Yeah.
So there's always common ground.
A woman with curly hair lives that life. Believe me. I straighten mine. So before we close out, tell me about Pride. Tell me about Alexandria Pride. I have to admit that I did not know anything about Alexandria Pride. Because I think I've always been like with the DC Pride, because I go with all my friends. I always got the best seat at this one bar that Pride went right by, because I knew the owners of the bar, and everyone's like, how'd she get it? Because, I'm an advocate. I don't even have a letter. But I always we sat at this one bar that had the windows could be completely open, and it's elevated. So we had like the first 8 seats, and it was me and my friends every year, because we could see over the crowd. And then we would just order bottles of wine and a bunch of appetizers. So I always made a big deal of Pride, but it was always DC Pride.
So we've been doing Pride in Alexandria for just the last few years. And obviously Alexandria is a smaller city than DC. Every year we've been doing it, it's gotten a little bit bigger and a little bit better. So last year, for the first time, we held Pride at Founders Square, which is, if you're familiar with Alexandria, it's where the big open area where the fountain is, right in front of City Hall.
Christmas tree is there every year.
Exactly. So last year, for the first time, we held it there, which was a great statement of support from the city. The mayor was there. Everyone from city council was there. It was a demonstrated support. Exactly.
John's been on the show a couple of times. I love John Chapman.
His tour, the Manumission tour, is amazing.
It is.
Just did that recently. Can't recommend it highly enough.
Yes.
So this year, upcoming Pride, we're going to do it in the same location. We're going to have vendors. We're going to have face painting for the kids. There's going to be entertainment. It's a really fun time. Food trucks.
I wish we could get a mural wall that could be put up then and then. We need to find a sponsor for that.
That would be awesome.
I wonder who'd give us a wall space for that. That would be awesome. That'd be awesome.
That would be awesome. So it's going to be June 1st. So we think it's important for the city of Alexandria to move out on its Pride very early in June, which is Pride Month. So you can kick off Pride Month by swinging by downtown Alexandria the afternoon of June 1st. And this year, for the first time, we're also having a 5K fun run starting in Delray the next morning.
Oh, the next morning.
So you can continue the celebration of Pride the morning of June 2nd.
Diana, come on. We're going to have too many drinks at Pride. We're going to have so much. And then you're like, get up and run.
I'm an athlete, so it's a great way to work it out of your system.
That's why I'm like,
and that's why we say it's a fun run. Some people are going to run it super fast, and and other people are going to be.
I'm going to have a Bloody Mary and like a drinking cup or something.
That is totally
for the sodium.
Fine. That is totally fine. And the great thing about this fun run is that it was an idea of a student.
Oh, great.
A young woman in school said, hey, I think this is something that we should do.
So the run's going to start in Delray?
It's starting in Delray. And so folks can go to our website and you can get more information about that. But definitely attend Pride. You can just show up and wander around. Yeah. And if you want to sign up for the 5K run on the next morning, do that as well.
I'll be down there cheering people coming by.
You can be a run ally. I think that's a runner's ally.
I mean, anyone can get out of 5K, but I'm like, after a day of Pride? So the run, what else do we have?
So the one thing that understand about Pride, right? Because you talked about DC Pride.
Yes.
DC Pride and Alexandria Pride, very different kinds of celebrations, in part reflecting the different communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like DC Pride is a humongous party, a ginormous parade, thousands of people. Alexandria Pride is hundreds of people.
Yeah.
It's in Founders Square. Last year we had about 30 or 40 different vendors or representatives from different organizations. It'll be the same, a little bit bigger this year. And it's a very easy thing to pop into Alexandria Pride, walk around with your family for an hour or two, maybe get some frozen custard or something else from one of the food vendors and check things out.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not an all-day commit like it might be for DC
Well,
Pride.
then you could do the fests, and you could grab a bottle of wine at one, because there's a lot of vendors now that you can get wine and take it to go down onto the river.
Exactly.
And it's a beautiful day. The park, Founders Park, is right there. It's only a couple blocks away. You can make a whole day of it.
That whole section of the end of King Street, which is closed off to cars.
Yep.
You can walk around there. It's beautiful.
It is. And I only have to roll down the hill.
That's literally true, right? You can just roll right down King Street.
All right, Diana, thank you so much for being on the show and giving us so many wise words that really apply to life in general, and how we can just make society better for all, and how that is ever a bad thing is beyond me. So thank you.
It's my pleasure, and it's been wonderful to be on the show.
Wonderful. Thank you. Cheers.
Cheers.
The Designated Drinker Show is produced by Missing Link, a Latino-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, we craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Also in the Missing Link lineup of podcasts is Roger That, a podcast dedicated to guiding you through the haze of dementia, led by skilled caregivers. Now, if you're looking for a whole new way to enjoy the theater, check out Between Acts, an immersive audio theater podcast experience. Each episode takes you on a spellbinding journey through the works of newfound playwrights, from dramas to comedies and everything in between. Find Missing Link's League of Podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And while you're there, please don't forget to follow, download, and review the shows. Your reviews help our shows reach new audiences. To find out more about Missing Link, visit missinglink.company. That's missinglink.company.